Hello, Star Lovelies. It's a great time to be a soul. Today we're talking about...
Okay, this is going to seem like I'm taking a left turn. However, it's really not. I have my undergraduate degree in economics, and I've been reading The Economist for 30 years. This is something that I do. I understand. I've had my MBA. I've done all the things. And so I can look at the economy, and that underpins what I talk about when I look at the astrology. And so I've had a lot of people talking to me and saying, I really adored what you did with politics last year. Are you going to be doing anything? And yes, but no, I thought to myself, I wasn't really sure. And I went to my usual fashion of when something comes up from multiple people, I take it under advisement and I let it stir and I ponder and I let it simmer. And then I let it reveal itself the way it wants to be revealed. And it was like, well, you actually do know about the economy and finances and all the things. And when you do put that as part of your forecast, you are generally right. And so I know, how about if we take an economic lens instead of political one? So here I am. I want to talk about the recent tariffs. I want to talk about markets and how they're working and not working. And I want to talk about AI, just a glimpse. I have a separate article and a separate podcast on AI, and it has that intuitive lens. I know I'm doing it in my Rich and Powerful Leaders Academy, and we're doing it from a much more energetic one. And then I am doing things by your signature around this, because again, I'm looking to be really practical as we're here in this new era, and it's uncharted and it's very destabilizing and disoriented, and it's very uncertain. Wherever we can place certainty, the way it really means and matters is what I'm going to be doing. So here we are. It seems like an about face, but it's really not. It's really going back to roots for me. So when we're talking about the uncertainty in the markets and you're talking about strategy seems to be a little bit shaky, or you're waiting for that other shoe to drop. I know that some of my clients have been saying that to me. I'm looking at it through a different lens, because I can telescope in at that very functional level when we're talking about interest rates and bond yields and things like that. I can absolutely do that. But I also can widen the lens and say, okay, let's understand how the chess pieces are moving from that 30,000 degree lens. That's still earthly, and it's still, more of an experience and an expertise. But then I can take that big, huge look and look at it through the astrology, right? So that's the astronomical look. And when I do that, I just know without a doubt the opportunities infinitely and exponentially outweigh any constriction. Of this, I am positive. And so before I go in, I do have a very structured format for this podcast. And I'm going to go into the first segment, and I'm going to get really practical with examples for you, so that this isn't just there's Kim talking about things from 9 million feet, right? I want to go in and be, I can pluck this, I can apply this. And that's what we're going to do. Because when I look at the energy, I am seeing it as microcosms and as bubbles and as of these little opportunity facets, if you will. I'm not looking at it as that big block energy the way things used to be. And yet, when we look and we hear the news, or we read the news, or we're hearing people talk, it's real, right? And tariffs are tariffs, and the tariffs, no matter how seriously, I am sorry, but really, never mind. Anyway, I could say so many things right now, and I'm just not going to. Oh, for the love of God, I have to say that. Okay. But there are tariffs. However long they're going to live, and whatever way they're going to live, there are tariffs. And when in the economic lens, tariffs are always tightening. They're always constricting, because they're putting walls up. And walls feel really good because you feel protected, right? And so there is some truth to that it can be beneficial, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. However, it's just when I say to people, they'll come to me and they'll say, they don't know me very well, because they'll say this, and those of you who know me know that you won't say this if you know me very well. They'll say, I'm putting up my barriers, I'm defining my boundaries, and I'm like, I always look at them, I'm like, yeah, that's really interesting, but that's the exact wrong energy that you want. Because as you're putting up these walls, and as you're putting up these boundaries, you have a temporary respite. You don't have a long-term one, because when you're looking at growth, and when you're looking at things on the soul level, and when you're looking at things from an abundance level, you don't want any walls in place. It's the same thing with the tariffs and trade. So, it's interesting. Nick and I were having a conversation, and he was talking about he's loving the fact that people are now getting if you raise a tariff to be a 35% barrier, then prices are going to go up. And he's right. If we had this conversation 3 years ago, people wouldn't understand the word tariff. They wouldn't understand trade, and they wouldn't understand the relationship between putting up a tariff and then the price going up, right? So there is some truth to that. There's the revelation. There's that new Neptune and Aries that people can see that, right? And yet they're looking at it and in a good way, right? Because consumer confidence is really wanky and it's really low. But if you can position yourself as I am in the steel industry, or I am in the device industry, or I am in whatever other industry that is going to remain. I don't know how long these tariffs are going to remain. Then you do have guess what? You are somewhat safe because you now have a little bit more openness in your marketplace, only if it's domestic though, right? So that kind of blows because most things are global now, which is why the tariffs don't really work. And you probably heard people say the last time that this happened, it was right before the Great Depression. And we've got currencies that are unstable right now. We've got supply chains that are broken or brittle. We've got the markets that are volatile. And yes, all those things are true. So you can be sitting here saying, I am waiting for the other shoe to drop. And again, when I look at that, when I telescope to it, and I look at it from an economic perspective, I will say that nothing is working the way that it should be working, right? And there's different reasons for this. I'm going to go the star reasons in a minute, but I'm going to just stay in the economy for a minute. Because there are way more first world economies than there were 30 years ago. There's way more shadow, dark market currency exchange than there was in market and trade than there was, 30 years ago. And there's a M1, which is like a certain money supply. There's much more, and there's also much less. That's a whole different conversation. I'm not going to get into the money supply. I just refuse to do that. However, these three things are levers that used to depict and predict how the economy would execute after something like this happened, right? Like, so we could say this event, happened in June 1st of, 2025. And I know it's not, but and then this event should happen within this time frame. Those things are not as explainable anymore. And that is really good. It's good, but not, right? It's good because then we can say, okay, yes, we do have these opportunity bubbles. Let's let them form and let's let them live. And then let's let them grow. That's good. The not so good part of it is that the markets are going to still be volatile and consumers are still going to be uncertain. But they're looking for certainty, and that's where you can come in. And I'll get to that in just a minute. I want to go into the stars for a few moments, though. Again, in this segment, I want to talk about the fact that all of this destabilization is the Pluto in Aquarius. So the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had different reasons that the markets they weren't really financial markets the way they are now, of course, because we're in the 1700s. But there was still trade, but again, not global marketing, not global positioning of you can get something here and something halfway across the world at the speed of light, right? Like that didn't exist then. So we can't really look at Pluto and Aquarius to give us the economic lens, but we can recognize that Pluto is dismantling the systems that are elusive, that are obfuscated, that are not clear, that are not transparent, that are not local, that are not grassroots, and that are not future-oriented, and are not in the new era, and not feminine and equality and freedom-based. There's the line, right? And then when we talk about Uranus is moving into Gemini. This is where this magic triangle comes in, right? So we have Uranus and Gemini. That's destabilizing. It's destabilizing the trade and the tech and the communication and the automation. Some of it in innovative ways. Hi, AI. How are you doing today? And then some in the, guess what? It wasn't really working anyway. That's where Neptune and Aries comes in. It wasn't even really working anyway. We deluded ourselves to say that, you know what? And I'm going to bring a really hot topic. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to bring a topic that's not so hot, but like the Postal Service, right? It was working beautifully. And then in the late 90s, oh, by the way, the last time that Saturn was in Aries, that was the first tranche of let's take money out of Social Security. That's a third rail I'm not going on. But let's also take money out of the post office. So all of a sudden the government was redistributing funds, but not then replenishing or altering the system to make sure that it could work under that guise, right? So I'm just going to stay in the postal service for a minute, right? So you've got, limited people working, you've got office hours, post offices are closing and things like that. And you say to yourself, yes, but do we really need them? Do we really need them? Because we've had FedEx now for a generation. We've got email now for a generation or more. We've got overnighting. We've got all these other ways to get things from one place to another. We've got local distribution centers now. I'm not talking about Amazon. I'm talking about Uber and DoorDash, right? Like there's all this way to get things from one place to another that doesn't rely on a centralized system of the U.S. Postal Service. So let's look at that and say what really makes sense for this. There is something beautiful about the fact that you can send a letter in the mail for 35 cents or whatever it is now, right? There's something beautiful about that. What function does it have? We can look at the same thing when we look at journalism. We can look at the same thing when we look at really anything in any industry, whether it has a government faction or not. So that's where I'm saying this, when we look at things through that planetary lens, we get a different view. Now, I did promise really practical outcome from this. And so the first thing that I was thinking about when I was thinking about the tariffs, and I was thinking about other destabilization. Now, this is not tariff related, but the whole situation with bird flu, right? And so eggs are now like $12.99 in the supermarket for a dozen. That's absurd because they were $3.99 before, right? Or $4.99. And then all of a sudden, we've got this inability to distribute eggs in a large factory-like manner. I know people don't like to think about that, but it's true. Because think about it. If you go to the big supermarket, you're most likely getting those goods in that supermarket through Cisco, through these big, huge distribution centers and these big, huge trucks that drive all over the country, and that they're taking the eggs from one place to another, and it's a very centralized source, right? That's why they can be such lower price. That's where there's a limit in the supply right now. And yet you go to local farms, you go to local markets, you go to local, like our local Whole Foods. We have a beautiful farmer's market here that is running all year long. It's $4.99 for a dozen eggs because they just haven't been hit with bird flu. So they can just supply, and that's beautiful. So you do have another way. Notice what I talked about with Pluto in Aquarius: local, grassroots, organic, functional in its little microcosm. That's another word I could use, because that big, huge, centralized way doesn't really work for everything. It works for some things, though, just like the postal service, but it doesn't work for everything. And so you can say to yourself, okay, but Kim, where's the opportunity? You promised us opportunity. So I'm going to use a really simple application of this. So say you're a stay-at-home, and I'm going to just use mom just for this, but stay-at-home mom, and you have young children at home, and you're on an income that you're concerned, right? You're like, damn, food is expensive enough, and I'm not working as much as I was before, or we have daycare expenses, and they're really a lot. Maybe my kids aren't in school yet, and so I'm looking at every single dollar. And are you kidding me right now? Eggs were the perfect thing. Everybody ate them. I could serve them for multiple meals. I could serve them in multiple ways. They were inexpensive, high protein, really good for you. Crap. Now what? Now I can't buy eggs. That blows. However, what if you then said to yourself, there's a huge opportunity here. There's a huge opportunity because I am home now more. I do have some more time, maybe, right? And in my community or my neighborhood, wow, guess what? What if I got a few chickens? And what if I then, collected the eggs with the kids? And then what if we had a little farm stand, like, table out in the front? Or what if I got with my local farmer's market and I were to give them eggs, and I were to then have eggs for me for much lower cost, and then have a little micro economy of being able to defray or offset some of that expense? Again, I've taken it and I boiled it down to the lowest common denominator of like looking at an extra $40 a week, right? Yes, I did that on purpose. This is this triangle in the cosmos right now saying there are massive opportunities depending upon what your issue that you're looking for to solve and how you want to innovate around that and what action you're willing to take that makes sense for you. I can look at this also through another lens, which is more historical. And then I'm actually going to give you two more examples, right? Practical Kim is here. So when we look at the 1800s, right, the mid 1800s, the stars were in totally different places. I'm not doing it from that look. But when you looked at the 1840s and you looked here in America and you looked at the gold rush, and just work with me now. So tons new frontier, same as right now. Unknown territory, same as right now. Lots of opportunity. Oh, by the way, same as right now. And many people migrating, same as right now. They may not be geographically doing it because we're now in ideation and information age. So that's a different thing. But there's a fluidity there with movement, right? Same. So now you have this gold rush and people were going out and they were buying their pans and they were doing the things. They were looking to get gold. I'm going to find gold. I am going to be one of those ones that strike it rich. I'm going to be able to find gold. Who were the true winners in that scenario? The true winners in that scenario were those people who did move and did take advantage of the opportunity, and then they opened markets. They opened markets for food and for water and for housing and for those pans that you needed to look for the gold, or who opened expedition sites for panning for gold, or who opened for those little chisel things or whatever it was, or camping supplies, whatever. Those were the true owners. Looked at a situation, saw the opportunity, took the risk to take advantage of the opportunity, took action for it, and then did it. That's what this is all about. That's this right now at this time. There is massive opportunity here. It isn't in that big, and I'm going to use blockchain, even though that's not what I'm talking about, but like it isn't in that super store. It isn't in that big, huge construct. It isn't behind the doors of or the windows of government or big agency or big corporations. They're little micro bubbles. Like when I look at the micro bubbles, pen, paper, guys, get out pen, get out paper, and let's look and see what your economy is for you and how you are leading your mini economy. I'm going to give you two examples. They're very different, and I'm doing that on purpose too. And they're different than the eggs, and they're different than the gold rush. So you will walk away with 4 practical, real-world glimpses of this. So the first one is, say you're a stylist, right? And so you're a B2C company. That means you're a business selling to consumers. You bring people in and you're doing extensions or coloring or cuts or something. Maybe you own the salon and so you have 4 or 5 hairstylists with you. Maybe you don't. I'm going to use a solo one for this example. And say you make about $150,000 a year. Your direct economy is $150,000. Because think about it. You are affecting yourself. You have a business. You are employed. You are making that much money. You can then go to the local store. You can go do, anything you want. Take trips, do whatever you want under that, guys. That is the direct impact that you have for your local mini economy. Perfect. Another one. I'm not going to go into multi-gajillionaires. I'm going to go with, people that are in this range and in this realm of probably where you are. Say someone is the founder of a networking group, and that networking group has 400 people in it. And the average salary or the average income or the average revenue that those people make is about $150,000. Notice how I kept that the same. And then you can look at that and say, what is the impact, the direct impact that founder of that organization has? It's going to be 400, say the average was 150, it's going to be $60 million because you multiply those. And that's the direct impact that you have. Now, most generally, this is going to be a makeup of B2B people, maybe some B2C, maybe some corporate, but let's just conservatively estimate like maybe 75% of those 400 people. So about 300 people have their own direct economies that they're being influenced by within your own networking group. And say they each have about $150,000 that they're impacting. That's another $45 million. So now you have direct impact about 60 million and you have indirect impact for another 45 million. Never mind what indirect impact they have and that ripple effect that you have. So think about this with that networking person. That networking person could be doing one of two things. Could be saying, holy crap, there's things that are so unstable and things that are so uncertain. And you know what? I'm just going to hold it right here. I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to kind of like put the boundaries up. I'm going to, defend myself against the changes. And I am going to be just thinking about these, all these people that I have in my world and the direct impact I can have. Sure. That's not bad. There's no negative here. Or that person can say, guess what? There is such uncertainty. There are so many changes. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be really forward thinking, and I'm going to be looking at the next thing that we're looking for. I'm going to start bringing in people that can talk about AI and talk about changes and talk about the bigger picture and talk about maybe astrology or something like that. And I'm going to get my people ready so that they are leaders on the leading edge. And so now maybe my 400 doesn't change, but maybe their 150 changes and that goes up a little bit. And maybe that 60 becomes 70 or 80 million, and then maybe they have a ripple effect that's bigger. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you taking pen to paper, looking at your business, looking at what you make personally. That's your direct effect, just like that stylist. But looking at your clients and your base and saying, what do you indirectly, affect? Because you directly affect that if you're in the service industry, especially if you're in consulting, especially if you're forward thinking and you're a leader in that area. And then you can look at the ripple effect of that. This is where the opportunity is. I'm doing it. I'm saying yes. I'm talking about tariffs. I'm talking about AI. I'm talking about ChatGPT. I'm talking about things that I normally don't talk about. And I'm doing it because I want to fill. Oh, by the way, I wrote a whole book. I wrote a whole damn book. And I did it on the new era millionaire pathway because this is uncharted territory, because this is our time, because this is the place for visionary leaders and visionary rebels to say, guess what? We are not going to accept that uncertainty. We're not going to accept that volatility. We're not going to accept that inability to have direct impact. No, because Pluto's in Aquarius and Neptune is in Aries and Uranus is in Gemini, and it's a triangle for the next 4 years, and we are going to take advantage of it, full-fledged advantage of it. Not to be opportunists, but to be that beacon of light for other people so that they have a safe place to land, that they can come and they can know in practical ways and magical ways or whatever ways that is aligned with your soul mission, that makes sense for you and makes sense for them, to give them a glimmer of what their next steps are and how they, even if, say they buy, hair product from you, that matters. Good hair matters, right? Say they buy eggs from you, that matters. Breakfast, dinner, lunch, that matters. Everything matters. But it doesn't have to matter so much that we're paralyzed. It doesn't have to matter so much that we're not flexible. So that's what I'm all about right now in this episode. And so when I continue and I say, let's think about AI, or let's think about the new economy. Let's think about this new era. I'm doing it on purpose because there is so much innovation. The pace is going to continue. And when we're looking through these lenses, we can look at them and digest them in ways that make sense to us, or we can look at them and digest them or not digest them. And then therefore we're missing out. Because when I look at AI and I look at intuition, they go together beautifully. They're not enemies of each other. They go together beautifully because AI is here and you can say, okay, you know what? Super helpful to me, but I don't really know how to use it. And I don't really know what I want to do with it. Or if I'm in a pivot and things are changing and I don't really have that full-fleshed, I'm not the center of this right now. This is where you always come first. Putting yourself in the center, knowing what your voice is, knowing what your offerings are, even if you're in a pivot, knowing what your next step is, even if you don't see 3 steps in front of you, knowing that you need help in a certain area, and then saying, okay, what is the best way for me to do this? Starting with me, starting with my soul mission, starting with my unique voice, starting with my story. That's where AI can come in and be a beautiful amplifier. It can be this beautiful, power you up, but only if you have that intention and you have that integrity, and if you're using either that instinct or that intuition. Then it's a great hand holder for you. It's a great helper. It's a great support. I'm doing a whole entire episode on AI and intuition, and I'm doing a whole entire episode on using, and I'm just picking ChatGPT just because I know it, and your signature. And I'm doing that purposely too, because guess what? What am I doing here in this whole opportunity base and my ripple effect? I'm doing things that I normally wouldn't do. Why? Because it matters, because it could be helpful, because one of the things that I say could be just that right sentence in the right moment for the right person at the right time. Yes, I'm always going to say yes to that because that's my brand. And getting the astrological lens with that economic or that innovative or that practical one is what I want to do, and it's who I am. And so if you're looking at leadership, that's also, my brand, right? So yes, your leadership style matters. So let's look at that, right? Like let's look at the planets and let's look at like what Pluto has to say about that, and Neptune, and what Uranus has to say. So Pluto is asking you to get rid of any fluff, like anything that's outdated, anything that like, it requires external validation, anything that is not true to you. Pluto is like, remember that bulldozer energy that was coming, like all last fall, and then that pressurized power between Mars and Pluto. This is exactly what this energy has been for months and months and months, like been a year and a half. And so if you have not been winnowing down and grinding and becoming that diamond facet, then I beg you to do so, because you are too important not to choose yourself and not to choose the things that matter most to you. That's a message from Pluto. And so Neptune is all about, guess what? And so many of us are going to be so happy with this message. There's not going to be any more fake it till you make it. There's not going to be any more I read a book and now I'm the expert. There's not going to be any more I stole all your stuff and now I'm going to use it. This is the clarity, the rose-colored glasses, the delusion, all that stuff is off the table. The evaporation factor will be much higher if somebody is saying, great, you know what? I took a little mini class from you and I went to one master class and I loved what you said and did. So now I'm going to do it myself. It's going to evaporate before it even comes to be. That old nonsense is over. So that feels really good, right? And then when we look at Uranus, this is where innovation is an optional, guys. Like, oh my God, when I talked about, depending on when you're listening to this, right? I'm recording it at the very beginning of April in 2025. So whenever you're listening to this energy is really, really new. And we haven't even hit Uranus and Gemini yet, but we will. And it's it's such a big planet and it's such a big energy that it's coming. It's here. Jupiter's been in Gemini for a while. Like, we got it. It's just where pace is picking up and innovation is just moving fast at the speed of light. So when I talk about, if it's AI or if it's a new offer, if it's a new message, or if it's a new pricing or a new anything, I always tell you that you need to wear it. When I look at AI, you need to be able to digest it. I am on connection calls all the time, and I'm hearing from so many people, I'll just be honest with you, before I get on a connection call, I may meet somebody introduced through someone else or gee, I saw you on LinkedIn and I'll hop on a call. I'm an intuitive visionary. I love to talk to people. So go ahead and do that. We have it very selectively placed on my calendar, and I'm very selective about who I talk to. So I want to talk to these people. I will look at your LinkedIn profile before I hop on the phone with you, because I don't know you, and I will always do that. That's the Capricorn in me. I am not going to hop on a call with somebody that we've set up 20 minutes to talk to and not know who the hell they are. It's just not going to happen. So it only takes a few minutes. I have intuition, right? It only takes a few minutes. I just kind of I look to see who I got introduced to them from. If that's there, if not, I just kind of looked at what was the exchange? How do we get into the room together? Great. I will know that. I will also know what their LinkedIn profile is. I cannot tell you the difference between the LinkedIn profile and the person who sits in front of me. It has become miles different than what it used to be. Because think about it. What you used to have to do is hire somebody to help you, either knowing and being experts on LinkedIn, or knowing and being experts on how to brand, or knowing and being experts on how to, position a person. Now all you have to do is go into AI and just say, hey, what should I say on LinkedIn? Literally, that's all you have to do. It costs you no money. It costs you no time, basically. And oh my God, it could be sexy AF. I mean, you could sound like the best, biggest hotshot in your industry in 5 minutes or less. But guess what? You're still you. And guess what? It's still going to show. And guess what? If you are too different between what you have on your profile and who you are, it is going to be very, very clear. And I am intuitive, so I will walk it and be, whoa, okay. No, I'm not judging. I have no judgment on that, but I'll start talking to the person. And a lot of times I will, just talk to them about like, okay, so what's the deal? How, and I hear Barnum, oh yeah, no, isn't that super sexy? Yeah, I wrote that. And I just, I love for things to be able to come out of my mouth. I love to be able to wear the energy, and I love to be able to just really be powered in that. And I love to be grounded. Maybe it's the Capricorn in me. That's what I say sometimes. Other times I'm like, yeah, I'm out. I'm just out. I'm out. guess what? I'm not going to refer you to anybody. I'm not going to guess what anybody. If anybody's listened to this and you haven't hopped on a call with me, and we do decide that that's a good idea, and this is when you know you are out of my life, is when I send you a meditation. That's when you know. You're like, oh, okay, there's my exit. There's my exit handshake. You know what would be really helpful? I've got this great meditation. Why don't you go and grab it? It's when I send it to you, not when I give it to you in a newsletter, not when I give it as part of a live or whatever. That's a gift. This is when I'm like, you know what? Here's your handshake. And okay, I'm not even going to tell you to listen to the podcast. I'm not going to tell you to take the quiz. I'm not going to tell you to do my newsletter because, quite frankly, I don't want you in my world because you are not who you present yourself as being. And I don't want you that close because I'm not looking for that. I'm just not looking for that. So I know I've gone on a little bit of a diatribe, but this is that Neptune and Aries energy with that Uranus and Gemini and that Pluto in Aquarius, because we do have the chance to be so incredibly utilizing and taking advantage of in the best possible way. We're leveraging all the innovation. But if we don't wear it, it's actually a negative. And so when you're, looking at AI and new offers and fresh messaging and, you have that ability to evolve, ask yourself if it reflects you. Can you wear it? Do you own it? Does it make sense from you? Is it something that you're digesting? Is it something that you're actually being able to reflect outwardly or not? That's all. The other thing I want to talk about, which is going to seem a little bit interesting, but not because you guys know me, is your signature. And so for your intuitive success signatures, when you're looking at the tariffs and the tightening and the currency destabilization and the market volatility and the innovation pace being so incredibly fast, let's go into creating your own blueprint and your own compass. And so if you haven't taken the quiz yet, I don't know who you are, but that's fine. Go to your starmaptosuccess.com and answer those 12 questions, and you'll get your energetic signature for how you make decisions, for how you handle situations, for how you like to innovate. And in this case, we're going to be talking about different facets. It might be the AI piece, it might be the currency piece, it might be the tariff piece, or it might be just I said innovation already. So for you wives strategists, guess what? You are so grounded and you are so task-oriented and so production-oriented. AI is great for you. So I'm going to look through that lens for you. And you are grounded enough to know that, that's really interesting that AI gave me 12 answers to the questions, but I'm going to stop here and I'm going to digest this and I'm going to make sure that this is really something I can have integrated. And then I'm going to move on to the next step. So for you, it's around the strategizing the value set that it's giving you and not just the multiplicity of the volume. So use it as your research partner, as your amplifier, and that will be perfect for you because you should be using it because it would super help you. It's just going to save you time. And that's going to be wonderful. Intuitive visionaries, no. I'm not going to come through the lens of AI for you. Just not doing it. I'm going to come in the lens of that Neptune and Aries for you. This is about you owning your brilliance and you staying grounded in your ideas and you being able to channel based on what people are ready for. So you've waited for 20 years or more for this time. So please don't distract yourself by outpacing with all those, whether AI generated or conversations that you're having or really big sexy things that are here. There are so many of them. I literally am downloading things at a pace now that my mind can't even keep up with. So the intention that I've set is to energetically be able to align. And I literally, every single time something comes in, not only do I ask if it's mine or not, because I always do that, but I ask, how does it fit? I don't say, does this fit in with what I'm currently doing? I ask, how does it fit? And then if it doesn't, when? And I am getting some things for 5-10 years from now, and I'm letting them sit there, literally done, that you can sit there because right now it's too awesome not to. For you ruling warriors, AI, yes, let it reinforce you. You want to stay in that relational integrity. You do have so much integrity. And so when you're looking at things, look at it from an automation and support team perspective for you, because that is a kryptonite for you. So be asking it more procedural things versus those new ideas. And then collaborative explorers, what you want to be doing is you want to be I'm not going to be in the AI world. I'm not going to even be in that innovative world. I'm going to be in that relationship leadership world for you. And I'm not going to repeat what I've said before. I would love for you to start thinking about the microeconomies and really go in and roll up your sleeves and look at yours and look at your indirect, because your indirect is far greater than your direct. Seriously, honestly, there's barely any collaborative explorers that follow me because I don't have a group. So any of you out there that want to go ahead and reach out to me, go ahead, go to kimwoods.com and go to the contact. It's under about, and just send me a message and I will help you do the calculation for you, because there's like 3 of you that are listening to me. I can do that. Okay, creative superstars. This is where you want to protect. I know this sounds really weird, but you want to protect your brand. You want to protect your story. You want to protect your creations and your innovations. So remember, I don't use that word that often. I just talked about putting up walls. This is definition. Talk to an attorney about intellectual property and ensure that you've got the things that you need, either copyrighted or patented or what have you, because yes, the charlatans or us are gone. They are. Like they're going to evaporate. I talked about with that Neptune and Aries energy, but AI can just start scraping things. It always could, but now it's just amplified, and you don't want all your secret sauce out there. You just don't. So you want to make sure that you go in, talk to an IP attorney. They're wonderful. Tell them what your budget is, tell them what your pace is to be able to absorb this, and just go ahead and start doing that for yourself. And then for you, loving alchemist, it's horrifying for you, all the things that are happening, and I'm sorry for that. You are the beacon and you are the leader. So really look at what the Plutonian aspect of wholeness is, and how you can be, helping others through the disruption, because your energy has been anchored at the beginning and it's been anchored at the end. And when you anchor it in the middle, that's where you get your value exchange that you're looking for. So for everyone else, the future is here. The new era is here. The new season is here. The planets are almost in their new signs. You're being expected to lead differently, to sell differently, to be able to show up differently. Maybe not. Maybe it's the same, but now you can be seen in your truth, in your courage, and your soul. So this is your permission slip. Think about it that way. Your permission slip to say no to outdated models, to say yes to deeper questions, to let your soul speak, let your intuition be that conversation piece between you and your soul, to let the star guide you, and to let the things happening out there not be a direct correlation to what's happening with you. So you can let that go and let it dissipate and say, this is my micro bubble, my microcosm, my microeconomy, and this is what I'm focusing on. So as always, thank you so much for listening and sharing with friends. Go ahead and check out the AI and intuition articles I have, the podcast that I have, the article I have about the tariffs. If you haven't bookmarked the Star Strategy Center, go ahead and do that on my website, because that's where the updates just happen automatically. As always, thank you so much, and happy soul tidings.
Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more ways to use the stars strategically to align with your soul purpose, reclaim your power, and increase your prosperity. Please rate and review your favorite episodes, and remember to check out my website at kimwoods.com for my latest forecasts, articles, and offerings. To find out your intuitive success signature, take my 12-question Do You Know, Like, and Trust Yourself quiz and find out how you're living your stars at yourstarmaptosuccess.com. I've so enjoyed our time together, as it's filled with the power of the stars plus strategy to clear the pathway to your success. Until next time, happy soul tidings.